Hello, it's Friday the 22nd of July 2050 and it's been another extremely hot day across the UK. However, there is a glimmer of hope for some cooler conditions towards the middle of next week. Now widely, temperatures exceeded 36 Celsius today, with highs from Southampton to Birmingham exceeding 40 degrees and a top temperature of 43 in Worcester. Little relief tonight either, with temperatures remaining high widely across the UK. Do what you can to stay cool. UK climate projections state that in general we can expect warmer, wetter winters and warmer, drier summers. As well as heat waves, we might also expect increased flooding in the coming decades. Winter rainfall is expected to increase by at least 7% by 2050. And whilst an average summer may be drier, when it does rain in the summer, we can expect heavier downpours.
Hello there, good evening. Now the bank holiday is looming, the weather has changed, we're talking rain or showers. There's a little sunshine in the mix as well. I'll see you in a while.
Climate change, in terms of the science that we study, is how human beings, society has pretty much altered the state of the climate because of our activities on Earth. And that's mostly from burning fossil fuels. Burning fossil fuels creates carbon dioxide and other gases, which we call greenhouse gases, like methane, that act as pretty much a blanket over the lower atmosphere, trapping heat. And then that heat has nowhere to go because there's too much of this type of gas in the atmosphere. And so the global temperature rises, which is what's been happening, and it's rising at an unprecedented rate. So climate change touches every part of the world, and that includes our local town as well.
So John, first of all, tell me about why you're so passionate around the peatlands and the environment.
Well, I'm passionate about peatlands because they store carbon and they store history. Because as they develop through time, the layers in the peat are capturing what is happening in the atmosphere. They're capturing the pollen rain from surrounding vegetation. And so they tell a story about how over the last 10,000 years our landscape has changed. And peatlands in the UK represent a really important carbon store. And it turns out that Wilmslow is one of the most biodiverse places in the whole of Cheshire.
Where have we come from and where are we at right now with our local peatlands?
So in 2015, that was a brown desert. So it was a really dreadful prospect. And since the water table has begun to recover, we're seeing nature doing a remarkable job of natural recovery. And that will speed up as we begin to get the restoration scheme moving on to the next stages.
Yeah, it's amazing. It feels like it's, when I first arrived on the peat bogs, the first time when I moved up here from London, I felt like there was a bit of an Armageddon level to it. It felt like it was a world where there had been a battle, some sort of battle, and it being degraded because of human touch in the worst possible way. And that's almost the beauty of it now, is there's a rawness about the peatlands, which it's not pretty really, but it's beautiful. But there's something not cute or sweet about it. There is something very hardy, and there's a survival which exudes its own beauty.
So in the UK, we're releasing 10 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year from our peatlands, because 80% of them are damaged or not in good condition. So that's the first issue. Secondly, the peatlands are very valuable in terms of delivering water and in delivering water of high quality. That's important. There is more carbon in UK peatlands than in all the trees in France, Germany, and Britain put together. Peat bog became an oasis really in lockdown. And I think people realized just how valuable and important these places were. Our peat bog is unusual because ours has a different atmosphere because it's surrounded by woodland. And so you get this feeling of enclosure. And even though it's so close to the town and even not that far from something like Manchester Airport, this sense of enclosure creates a sense of isolation and tranquility, which is really quite remarkable. And so those fringing woodlands are really important actually in helping to create and sustain that special atmosphere.
Climate change is a global problem, but it manifests incredibly locally. Everyone has their own experience of how climate change affects them. So if you're living in China, in the middle of that huge country, you're going to see drought, you're going to see extreme temperature where it's almost hard to breathe, and that also impacts air quality. Somewhere like Wilmslow in the northwest of England, we are incredibly lucky because we're living on an island where we get weather from lots of different directions. And a lot of it comes from the Atlantic, so it's clean ocean air, which brings cloud and rain, so changeable conditions. But we live in a very industrialized nation as well, and we've pretty much changed the face of the landscape of the UK, including Wilmslow, over thousands of years through farming and then through the Industrial Revolution. And that's one way that Wilmslow has really been impacted, because we live very close to this incredible biome, this incredible landscape, which are the peat bogs. And peat is an amazing soil. It's an amazing material, not only creating its own biodiversity and ecosystems where many flora and fauna just thrive, but also it has an incredible ability to absorb carbon dioxide. However, we've used these peat bogs over hundreds of years, and we've taken more and more of the soil and the layers of peat bog for our own use, whether it's for farming or to sell or to use as a fuel. And that's exposed this earth and this landscape to a weakening ecosystem, which is unable to actually absorb as much carbon dioxide. So through our action, we are contributing hugely to the global problem. Now, with climate change, there's two things that society and industry and government and businesses are doing. Many businesses, not everyone, not every country, but we are going in one direction now. The first one is mitigation, where we pretty much extracting carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and not putting as much in. And that's through renewable energy, so wind energy and solar energy, wind particularly in this country, solar across in Europe, but also other measures like energy efficiency, using smart meters and using less energy because we know when we need to use it, and we can see when there's more demand, so we're sort of leveling out those peaks and troughs. The other one is adaptation. So it's adapting to what we have to protect ourselves from the climate and how it's changing so rapidly, and it is changing at a rate of knots. So here in Wilmslow, one key adaptation which many scientists are doing is protecting our green belt, protecting our landscape, so that when the weather is really extreme in terms of too much rain, the land can absorb it so we don't see as much flooding. Adaptation is a really important thing to protect us from extreme weather and extreme climate change, but also we need to mitigate so that our future generations have a better chance of surviving, but not only surviving, but thriving as well.